So data science, it's a pretty broad field. It ranges from, simple, analysis of data, which could involve, basic statistical analysis like mean, median, mode, et cetera, all the way to very, very complex artificial intelligence, machine learning models, deep neural networks, all of that stuff. So it's a pretty broad field. And the way you kind of dive into the field is you pretty much kind of go through the basics, get an idea of what each aspect of the field looks like, after which you can choose to dive further into one of those specific subfields. So for example, I really like working with predictive models and machine learning models and working with deep neural networks. So I'm on essentially the machine learning side of data science. And for that, I took all my basics. I started with, intro statistics, and I did exploratory analysis, kind of, figuring out, how to start projects from the ground up, what is required to get there. And then finally moved on to, the machine learning side, where I got a better understanding of, matrix algebra and what happens in all of these complex machine learning algorithms and how to implement them. So that's kind of where I did a bit of a deep dive. And that's led me to this position where I am sort of like a resource for all sort of research projects at Vanderbilt. And people come to me, that they want to predict, say, burnout in nurses. So I know how to work with machine learning models. I don't necessarily know much about burnout in nurses or any other field in general. But what I do is I take my skills that I learned in communication of science and technology. I read through research papers, say, related to nursing. I get a better understanding of the domain. And then what I do is I take their data, I help them get it into a format that is appropriate for building prediction models, and then help them, develop a tool that can help them, say, catch burnout before it happens in nurses, because it's a huge loss to the field if you do something like that, if you end up burning out. So at the Vanderbilt Nursing School, what they're trying to do is they're trying to prevent that from happening. And they're building a tool with us that will allow them to catch this before it happens and make, workplace changes before negative impacts take place.
So I think that's such a pertinent and important point of discussion in any organization, any service organization. And I can imagine how difficult it's been for nursing staff at hospitals across the world.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, what I liked was, as a consultant, you're jumping from like different problems, and the domain experience of that industry is something that you gain along the way in a much more insightful and incisive way.
Right.
So it kind of saves you time to know a lot about big problems these industries face, or the kind of problems, the challenges they want to solve.
Right.
So, this is one example. What kind of projects did you do when you were in university, undergrad or postgrad, and also kind of industry exposure that you enjoyed doing?
So I've really been all over the place. So like when I was doing my environmental science honors thesis, that was also data science. It wasn't a predictive model, but it was more along the lines of an exploratory analysis of gentrification in Nashville. So that was sort of like a civil engineering / environmental science kind of project. And after that, I've done research on armed conflict in African nations. So, I got data sets of instances of armed conflict across various parts of Africa and studied them, and kind of helped the Political Science Institute at Vanderbilt get a better understanding of these conflicts for their purposes. I've worked with astrophysicists to build models that will help detect black holes in Hubble Space Telescope images. And I've worked with the nursing school. I've worked with educators to try and identify missingness when it comes to gifted and talented students in high schools across America. So I've been like all over the place. I've also interned with an insurance company, automotive insurance, helping them develop a predictive model to understand customer propensity to buy. So that was like my main deep dive into like data science in industry. But I have been very, very focused on, the academia side and helping professors and other research groups at Vanderbilt just get more insight from the data that they don't necessarily know how to do, because everybody has data, they just don't know what to do with it.
Yes, that's absolutely bang on in terms of any organization, including ours, which is really tiny. We have data and we have people responding to all these videos and podcasts, and we're actually doing nothing about that. So engagement is something, a problem we'll want to solve. Yeah, lovely to know that there's this other side, which is, teaching and academic, assisting in classes or even taking classes. So does that lead to a PhD then? This is just a job which is more specific to project students do and not academic teaching as such?
Yeah, the job particularly doesn't lead to a PhD per se. I am just a data scientist for the institute, where we just act as a consultant for anyone and everyone who wants to use our services. So that's not just limited to the Vanderbilt bubble. We've had clients from other industries also come to us, because we have, infrastructure to help support such data science projects, which, maybe small businesses in Nashville don't have access to, or they're just looking to, outsource some of their analytics work. So part of the master's program also does that. We have a class where students are divided into teams, and everybody, takes on a client project from a company in Nashville. So it doesn't necessarily lead to a PhD, but one would think, you're spending so much time in academia, you would likely go down the PhD route. I don't know if I want to do that. That it's a pretty big commitment, 5-7 years of very, very in-depth research in data science. I personally really love the idea of, jumping around from field to field and doing something different every day, which I think if I do a super deep dive into just data science, it would likely end up me being working on, one project for like multiple years. So I think this job does a good job of, teaching me a lot. I'm learning a lot every day. So I'm kind of almost getting that PhD learning experience without actually having done one. I've built skills that weren't taught to me as part of my master's program already. Just being part of this job, I know how to, be a system administrator now on Linux machines. We just got like some really, really state-of-the-art GPUs and other hardware, and they're all, on a complex Linux system, which I had no idea how to deal with. But now I'm the one who's leading that setup for Vanderbilt. So it's a good learning experience. It's exposing me to a lot of different sides of data science and data science engineering. And so I don't think PhD is necessarily down the path, at least not right away.